Hey everyone, in this tutorial you will learn how to create 2D player movement in Unity using both transform without physics and rigid body with physics. By the end, you will understand the difference and know when to use each one. And a special shout out to Riabuz Reverse and Twerl for supporting me on Patreon. In order to make player movement, we're gonna use two ways. One, we will use player transform. Another, we will use rigid body 2D of our player, so we can just add the linear velocity. So create a script called player movement. So you can just head over to your assets, right click, go create, and then mono behavior script, name it to something like player movement. And you can see I have already created, and make sure you attach the script to your game object, which I have already done, and you can see. So let's open that up script by double clicking on it, and let's tackle with the transform first. So first thing, we will go to top of our class, and we basically what we will do, we're gonna make a variable called movement. So let's make a variable called movement, and this movement variable just gonna keep track of which direction we just want to move, and we just want to flip our player game object. So we're gonna make a private float. Let's call it something like movement, and we will go to our update function, and inside our update function, which runs every single frame, we will set our input dot input we will set our movement equal to input dot get axis, and we need to pass the axis in which axis we want to move. Because we want to move horizontally, so we're gonna pass horizontal, but it's not gonna work in your case if you're using the new input system. And if you want to use the new and the old both, then you have to do one more settings. To do that, make sure you go to Unity editor. In the top left you can see edit, go to edit, project settings. So we're going to choose our player in the left bar, go over to other setting and scroll down to the bottom and find this active input handling. Make sure it's set it to both. If you're using the input manager old, it's gonna work, and if you're using this input system package new, then a and w a and d key not gonna work at all. So make sure you choose both, and now it's gonna work fine. So we can just cut this tab, and let's go back to our script. And over here we have to pass horizontal, and make sure you spell it correct, else it's not gonna work at all. Horizontal. So if we for example, if we hold down D key, then this function over here it's gonna give us a 1, and if we hold down A key instead of the D, then this function over here it's gonna give us -1, and we're storing that value inside this movement parameter that we created up over here, which can be 0, -1, +1 depending upon which key we holding down. And if we lift up both of our fingers from both of those keys A and D, then this function just gonna return us 0 value, and we storing inside this movement. And now we are ready to move our player, and to move it we're gonna use the fixed update function instead of using this update function. So make sure you include this function called fixed update. So whenever we working with the physics, we need to make sure we do inside fixed update instead of doing inside this update function. And this fixed update function just runs like update function, but the frame rate over here is constant. So that's why we're gonna use. And now we're gonna use the transform. So we will go to transform dot position, and transform dot position means the player position. We're simply going over to this player, and you can see the transform, then accessing this position, and top of that position we can just add a vector 3, because this transform dot position we can see it has x, y and the z position. So top of that plus equal we can use a new vector 3, which also gonna have the x comma y comma z, and that's all we have to do. So in the x-axis we want to move, so that's why in the x we're gonna replace with the movement, which can be -1, +1 or 0. Let's suppose if it's -1, it means that our player will move to the left direction, and if it's +1, then it will move to the right direction. And if that movement is 0, then player just gonna stand at one point. And the y-axis we don't want to play around, so in the y we can simply put 0f, and we can do the same thing in the z-axis. And it would be nice if we multiply with some number so we can just move a little bit faster. So let's make a variable for that. So we will go to top of our class and let's make a public variable. So we're gonna make a public float. Let's call it something like move speed, and by default I'm gonna set it to something like 5 unit. And let's multiply this whole vector with the move speed, and also make sure you multiply with the time dot a fixed delta time, because we're doing inside this fixed update function, and it will make the frame rate constant. So sorry, it will make our speed constant, so that's why we need to multiply with time dot fixed delta time. So make sure you multiply with time dot fixed delta time, and that's all we have to do. And we can move our player, we can notice we can move left and right, because the physics just gonna work with the rigid body 2D instead of using the transform dot position. So the first thing we need a reference to this rigid body 2D component. So let's grab the reference first. So we will get back to our script and let's go to top of our class and let's grab the reference. So we're gonna make a public, and the component we're looking for is a rigid body 2D, and let's call it something like RB. Now we're gonna take our rigid body 2D, let's drag it over to this RB slot. Now we can see we have the player rigid body 2D component reference. Instead of using this transform dot position, we're gonna remove that. We will use the velocity, basically the linear velocity of our rigid body 2D. So we will go to RB, means we just simply going over to rigid body 2D of our player. Then we're gonna access the linear velocity, which gonna have the x and the y velocity. So we will set the velocity of our player rigid body 2D equal to a new vector 2, because this vector 2 just gonna have the x comma y. So because we want to move our player in the x, so we're gonna replace this x with the movement, which can be minus 1 or plus 1. So let's put our movement there, which can be minus 1 and plus 1, and even it can be 0. 0 means we just standing at one point. And we're gonna multiply this movement with the basically the move speed. So we can just move with the move speed parameter, because this movement is 1 unit. So 1 into move speed, and by default we have chosen 5. So 1 into 5 will be 5. It means our player just gonna move to the right direction with 5 unit of speed. And we don't want to play around with the y-axis, we just want to leave it as it is. So we can simply set rb dot linear velocity dot y. It means the current velocity of that player itself in the y-axis, and we just not playing around with it, we're just leaving the y velocity of our player, you can see itself. So the first thing, we're going to rigid body and then accessing the linear velocity, means we just going over to rigid body 2D of this player, you can see, and then accessing the linear velocity of this player, and then we just setting it equal to a new vector 3 vector 2, which just gonna be in the x it will be movement, means we can just go left and right, and we just leaving the y velocity of our player. And if we try to move, we can notice we can move left and right, and indeed it's working. So we can simply use the velocity of this rigid body